Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to the beginning of our multiplication and division unit, which is Unit 3. We are going to be starting this unit with multiplication of 3-digit numbers by 2-digit numbers. We're going to be covering 3 different strategies to do this today. The first 2 are ones that students should be familiar with. The first 2 are partial products using the box model and lattice. We're going to be talking about partial products without the box or lattice. And we're also going to be talking about the traditional standard algorithm. Now, like I've told you guys in class many, many times, I am not picky about what strategy you use as long as the strategy works for you. If it doesn't work for you, then you need to find something different that does work for you. So that's why I'm giving you, I guess there's 4 total strategies today. That way you have options. So the first one we're going to start with is our box model. We're going to work with one problem every single time so that you can see the connections between the 4 different strategies that we use. The problem we're going to be working with today is 621 times 35. And I'm going to leave my answer box blank. And now we're going to build our box. With the box model, you are working with the value of each number. And even under this, or next to it, I'm going to write box model and then an arrow that says value of each digit. And I'm writing that to remind you because of the way this has to be set up. So we're going to start with our box. Now, our first factor, each of the numbers that are being multiplied together are called factors. The answer is called the product. So the first factor is a 3-digit number. So we are going to go ahead and create 3 vertical columns in our box. And now I need to look to my second factor, which is a 2-digit number. So we need 2 horizontal rows in our box. Now, looking at our first factor of 621, the value of the 6 is 6 times 100, so 600. The value of the 2 is 2 times 10, which is 20. And the value of the 1 is 1 times 1, so 1. And then our second factor, we do the exact same thing. The value of the 3 is 3 times 10, which is 30. And the value of the 5 is 5 times 1, which is 5. Now we need to do the basic multiplication of this problem. I always start with my ones places just because I feel that it's easier. Honestly, you can start anywhere. Find a system that works for you. 1 times 30 is 30. 1 times 5 is 5. 20 times 30 is a little bit harder, but if I'm remembering the strategies that you should have learned in 4th grade, you multiply the numbers that are not zeros. So 2 and 3, 2 times 3 is 6, and then each number has a 0, so I take those 2 zeros and add them to the end. And 20 times 5, 2 times 5 is 10, and I add the 0 from the 20. Just like we did before, 600 times 30, 6 times 3 is 18, and I have 1, 2, 3 zeros to add to the end. And 600 times 5, 6 times 5 is 30, and I have 1, 2 zeros. So I have all of these partial products. I have the product of the value of the hundreds times the value of everything else, but it's what do you do with this? Now you have to add the partial products together. The one thing that most students mess up here is they don't line up the place values. I know you've heard me say that before with decimals, but you've got to do it with general whole number addition as well. So I'm going to start with my 18,000 plus 3,000 plus 600 plus 100 plus 30 plus 5. Now, as you notice, as you go down this chart, you go from greatest value to least value. So I'm going to start adding, and I need to add my ones place, which is 5, my tens place, my hundreds place, my thousands place is going to be 8 plus 3, which is 11. So I leave my ones, I carry my tens. 1 plus 1 is 2. So the product of 621 times 35 is 21,735. Now you will see that no matter how we do this, we are going to get the exact same answer. Now, lattice is the next strategy. Lattice is one that I'm kind of about. Some students love it, some students hate it. For me, I could take it or leave it. I understand it, but it's not one of my favorites. But I'm still going to cover it because there are students that are very comfortable with it. So just like we did before, 621 times 35 equals, and then the empty box for our answer. We are also going to use a box for this work. But this time, we are going to use the numbers as is. We are not going to be using the value of the digits. So I'm going to write 621 up top, creating 3 vertical columns, and 35 along the right side, creating 2 horizontal rows. Now is where a lot of students get tricked up. For lattice, you have to break each of these boxes into slashed rows like this. And the one biggest thing you have to remember is in each box, when it's split, the value of each number, the number in this top box, or the top portion of the box, is going to be the tens place, and the number that goes in the bottom of it is going to be the ones. Okay, and you'll see what I mean here in just a second. Now let's get to multiplying. So the multiplication is going to be the same basic thing as we did with box model. So we're going to multiply the number in the column by the number in the row where it matches. So 1 times 3 is 3. 3 ones, no tens. 1 times 5 is 5. No tens. 2 times 3 is 6. 6 has no tens. 2 times 5 is 10. That is 1 10 and 0 ones. 6 times 3 is 18, which means I have 1 10 and 8 ones. 6 times 5 is 30. 3 tens, no ones. Now here is where these slashed lines are going to come into play. Starting on the right-hand side, you are going to add everything that's in these rows. Kind of think of it like columns. So you can even turn the paper to where they look like vertical columns. So 5 plus nothing is 5. 3 plus nothing is 3. 0 plus 6 plus 1 plus 0 is 7. 0 plus 8 plus 3 is 11. Here's where you have to watch. Just like when you're adding traditionally, you leave your ones, you carry your tens next door. 1 plus 1 is 2. Now, we turn our paper back around. Starting from the left this time, to get our answer, all we have to do is write the numbers that we have. So 2, 1, 7, 3, and 5. And you'll see we got the exact same answer as we did with the box model, just a little bit differently. All right, so we're going to set this to the side, and we are going to continue on to partial products without using a box or lattice. I'm going to use my paper vertically this time. It's easier for me this way. We are still working with the problem 621 times 35 equals a product. This is where expanded form is going to help you. And this is also where that understanding of order of operations and PEMDAS and seeing things in a different way is going to come in handy. I'm going to break this number down because I know that 621 is the same thing as 600 plus 20 plus 1. And I'm multiplying that times 30 plus 5. Okay. So I'm going to write out the steps and show you the visual, and then we're going to actually do the multiplication. So I have to remember that I have to multiply 600 times 30 and 600 times 5. So I'm going to come down here and I'm going to write 600 times 30 and 600 times 5. I'm going to rewrite this. 600 plus 20 plus 1 times 30 plus 5. Now I move on to my next value, and I'm going to multiply the 20 times 30 and the 20 times 5. 20 times 30, 20 times 5. One last time. 600 plus 20 plus 1 times 30 plus 5. But this time, I'm now taking my 1 times 30 and my 1 times 5. All right, so now I've got it set up. Each of the products here are our partial products. Partial means a part. Product is the answer to a multiplication problem. And we're getting the parts of this multiplication problem, which is why they're called partial products. 600 times 30, 6 times 3 is 18, and I have 1, 2, 3 zeros. 600 times 5, 6 times 5 is 30, and I have 1, 2 zeros. 20 times 30, 2 times 3 is 6, and I have 1, 2 zeros. 20 times 5, 2 times 5 is 10 with 1 extra 0. 1 times 30 is 30. 1 times 5 is 5. Now, if you're thinking like me, then you're thinking, Ms. Pike, I've seen this before, because you have. Doesn't it look very, very similar to what we got with our box model? Just a different way to get it. And now, you guessed it right, we have to add these partial products together. We have 18,000 plus 3,000 plus 600 plus 100 plus 30 plus 5. Our ones place has a total of 5. Our tens place is a total of 3. Our hundreds place is a total of 7. Our thousands place is a total of 11, so I leave my ones and carry my tens. My 10,000s place is a total of 2. We still came up with 21,735. So this is partial products without using the box or lattice. Now, the last one we need to talk about is standard algorithm, which standard algorithm to the parents that are watching is the general way of multiplying two numbers together that most likely you or I learned when we were in school. We are going to start with our problem again of 621 times 35, and that is going to equal a final product. So we need to start with formatting our problem, just like you would generally do. 621 times 35. All right. Now, this is where a lot of kids get tricked up, because these two bottom numbers confuse them. So we needed to remind kids that you have to work with one at a time. We're going to start with our ones place. And there was a little poem that I used to use with my fourth graders. It would say, ones to ones, tens to ones, hundreds to ones, bring the zero down. Ones to tens, tens to tens, hundreds tens, add them all around. So that simply means ones to ones. 1 times 5 is 5. Tens to ones, 2 times 5 is 10. So we leave our ones, carry our tens, and then hundreds to 10, or hundreds to 1, 6 times 5 is 30, plus 1 is 31. Now I'm going to change colors. I am done with that 5. I do not need to touch this anymore. I don't need to touch those numbers for right now. I'm going to switch to a green. And what most students ask, well, I don't understand why I'm putting a 0 here. And if you think about it, we're now multiplying by a number that is in the tens place. So if you're multiplying something by 10, there's always going to be 1 0 on the end of it. So this 0 is allowing us to multiply just a very simple one number by one number instead of multiplying 1 times 30, 2 times 30, 6 times 30. It's simply 1 times 3, 2 times 3, 6 times 3. So that 0 is the placeholder that allows us to not have to worry about multiplying by a value of 10. So now I need to multiply 1 times 3, which is 3, 2 times 3, which is 6, and 6 times 3, which is 18. And now I need to add up these partial products, because again, these are partial products. We've simply, and I'll even show you how this breaks down here in a second. 5 plus nothing is 5. Nothing plus 3 is 3. 1 plus 6 is 7. 3 plus 8 is 11. I leave my ones, I carry my tens. 1 plus 1 is 2. 21,735. Okay. So to show you how these two numbers connect to here, essentially this first row is the product of 621 times 5. And this second row is the product of 621 times 30. So let's work that out so you can see the differences. I'm going to start with the 621 times 5. And I'm going to slide to the bottom of my paper here. So 621 times 5. 1 times 5 is 5. 2 times 5 is 10. 6 times 5 is 30. Plus 1 is 31. This number matches our first partial product. And now I need to multiply 621. But remember how I said that that 0 was a placeholder? I'm not going to multiply by 30. I'm going to multiply by 3. And then we'll worry about that 0 afterwards. In fact, I'm just going to leave that 0 over here on the end. 1 times 3 is 3. 2 times 3 is 6. 6 times 3 is 18. 18,630. 18,630. So I hope that this now makes a little more sense when talking in these terms, because if you look at the partial products, it comes together a little easier. So those are the 4 ways that we are going to work with multiplication: standard algorithm, partial products without a box or a lattice, and our box model and lattice. And again, whatever way works for you. I am not going to get picky about which one you use. Parents, if there's a strategy that you know that you feel is going to work better for your student, please feel free to show them. I am not going to begrudge a student who finds something that works for them. The only thing I ask is that they be able to explain how the strategy works and why it works. That's my only question. All right, well, thank you so much for joining us for our first video for our multiplication and division unit. Next time, we will be talking about multiplying decimals, followed by dividing whole numbers, and then dividing by decimals. And at the very end of the unit, we will dive deeper into word problems and problem solving. Thank you so much for coming out today, guys. I appreciate it. We'll see you next time.